Hi there everybody, this is Lunar. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I am going to be doing my first Stitch With Me video. Yeah, let's just get to it. A couple things as I get going. One, I am filming in my living room, so I may be interrupted by cats at certain points. That's just how it is in this household. I also, as you may or may not notice, my cat just jumped onto the couch. I am not using my usual microphone. I'm just using my built-in camera audio. Wow, I really just undid that stitch. So I might sound a little bit less good than usual, but it is what it is. I just don't really have a spot to put a microphone while I'm doing one of these videos. So yeah. Third thing, I live in an apartment. It's actually a divided house. They do that a lot in this area. Folks will buy old houses and then they will split it into an upstairs and a downstairs unit, and then they rent it out as two separate apartments. So Ruben and I live in a downstairs unit. So we do have upstairs neighbors, and they at times they can be pretty loud. So yeah, hopefully it seems as though they have gone to bed for the night, knock on wood. But yeah, you might hear them walking around, and if you do, I apologize. But yeah. Today I wanted to talk about a seasonally relevant topic. I mentioned this in an actual floss tube video that I wanted to do this as a Stitch With Me. I wanted to include Ruben as well, but it's getting to be pretty late in the month of October, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to film with me this month, so I'm just doing this on my own. But I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite horror movies, so yes. Before we get into it, just a couple stitchy things. If you guys have not seen this piece for whatever reason, this is my fox cross stitch. I believe the pattern is by Llama Cross Stitch on Etsy. As far as I know, you can't currently access their shop. I believe that they're a Russian designer, so yeah, I don't think you can get this right now, but that's who it's by. And I'm stitching this 3/1 on 14 count off-white Aida. Right now I'm at 66.55%, and yeah, we're getting into the 24 hours of cross stitch weekend. Today when I'm filming is actually Thursday, so it technically starts tomorrow. I really waited until like the last minute to film this video. This week has just been very busy, I guess, in my personal life. It's, I don't know, it's been an interesting week. Certainly not my favorite week that I've ever had, but I've also had much, much, much worse weeks. So, but anyway, this is really the first opportunity I've gotten to film, so yes. Anyway, with 24 hours of cross stitch, I'm hoping to actually finish this piece in the next 3 days. I'm not sure, like, if that's actually gonna happen, but it is gonna be my focus piece during the event. I'm just marking off my stitches on my pattern keeper up here, so sorry about my arm. I'm kind of treating 24 hours of cross stitch as like my own personal little retreat type deal. I think it'll be a really good way for me to just spend some time by myself and relax with my stitching. So I'm very excited. But yeah, anyway, hoping to finish this, and yeah, I feel like there was something else I needed to talk about too. I don't know. I guess that's it. I guess if I remember, it will come up later. But yeah, I will probably be talking for quite some time here, so make sure you grab a whip to sit down and work on while you have this video going. And hopefully, hopefully you like horror movies, because I have a lot of opinions and I'm really excited to share some of my favorite movies with you guys. So, I'm going to be sharing actually 12 movies today. I'm doing like a top 10 type deal, and then I have 2 honorable mentions I want to talk about as well. The top 10 list itself, I haven't put in, oh, what the I haven't put in any like particular order. I had a hard enough time narrowing it down to 10 movies in general, so I just like couldn't, I could not rank them. So yes, they're not in order, but they're still like 10 of my favorite movies ever. So yes, let's just get into it. I'm gonna start off with the honorable mentions. The first movie I want to talk about is called Bad Ben. So this movie is interesting. I think that by most people's standards, it's not like a traditionally good movie, but I love it. Like, unironically, I think it's amazing. It is actually a series. I believe the 10th one is coming out in like a week or two. I'm very excited about that. But Bad Ben is a series which is directed by an independent director named Nigel Bach. He originally had... Why did I not take the strands that I needed off of this? This is so... Anyway, he originally had the movies available on Amazon Prime. They were included free with Prime. So that's how a lot of folks were able to find his movies, was because they were free to stream. From what I understand now, Amazon no longer has... There used to be like hundreds, if not thousands, of indie movies that were available for free with Amazon Prime, and they've changed something, and these movies are no longer free to stream, which has really cut off these indie artists' ability to get eyes on their stuff and also to make money off of their art. But anyway, that's where I initially found him. My friend and I, I'm probably going to be mentioning my friend a lot. They're my best friend. Their name is Lex. We have been watching horror movies together for a long time. I meant to talk about like my personal history with horror. We'll talk about that, I guess, after I finish talking about Bad Ben, because oh my god, my phone. Yeah, anyway. So, Lex and I put it on just kind of like one night when we were drinking. We didn't really expect it to be very good. We do really like watching bad movies, so it just sounded silly and it sounded like it was going to be fun to watch. And we were right, but both of us ended up falling in love with this director. So basically, the first movie anyway, was created because this guy Nigel was caring for his mother while she was very ill, and he had security cameras placed all over the inside of her house. And this was like, I think it was pre-pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he was just kind of there with his very elderly, very sick mother, and he was like, I'm just tightening my fabric here. I need something to do. Why don't I make a horror movie with all of these cameras I have in the house? So that's kind of where the idea of this movie came from, was just literally this guy who had a bunch of cameras in his house and a lot of spare time on his hands. The actual movie itself is kind of like a haunted house, demon type movie. It's really interesting. It's a little bit slow paced. There's a lot of like suspense building and stuff. And again, I guess people who are a little bit more snobby about films might say that this is a bad movie. I don't think that they're bad. I just think that they are not traditionally good. I think they're amazing. They are truly some of my favorite movies out there. I just had a hard time putting them on my top 10 list because of like the caliber of some of the other movies that I have on that list. So, yes. Anyway, please watch this series if you haven't. I actually have merch from this guy. I have a Bad Ben t-shirt and a mug. The mug is amazing. I just got it recently, but he's just great. And you can tell that he is just like really passionate about what he does. He tries to involve his fans in the movie creation process as much as he can. And yeah, it's just really great. He's just awesome. So that's that movie. Really quickly talking about some of my personal history with horror. Growing up, like as a younger teenager, I actually didn't really like horror movies. I'm talking like 13, 14 years old. I wasn't really like a big horror movie bitch. I remember at a sleepover when I was in middle school, my friends put on Insidious, and I pretended that I wasn't scared of it, but I was actually terrified and I couldn't sleep for the entire rest of the night. Yeah, so I eventually started dating this guy when I was like, oh my god, 15, I think. And it was a long distance relationship. We actually were together for 5 years. But towards the beginning of our relationship, we would watch movies together a lot. And because, you know, when it's long distance, it's kind of hard to to do different dates. You know, you don't really have that many options. So we would go on Skype, which because you know that was like the most popular video chat client back then. And we would both pull up whatever movie we were gonna watch on the streaming service, and there wasn't really a way for us to like both watch the same thing, so we would just like both play it independently, but we would count down like 3, 2, 1 and then hit play at the same time, so that we were both watching it at the same time. I think these days you could do like screen sharing or something on like Discord or whatever people use. I feel really old. I don't use like video chat if I can help it. I really hate it these days. But yeah, so we watched a lot of horror together, and it kind of it desensitized me a little bit so that I was actually able to like enjoy the movies without being terrified the entire time. And it also just made me appreciate the artistry that goes into horror. There's so much more to horror movies and horror in general than just like spooking you or doing jump scares in movies. It really is an art, and I think it's really underappreciated. I know that like those of us who are really into horror already know how much of an art form it is, but I think the general public really treats it like the junk food of literature and movies, when I really just don't think that's very fair. There's so much good stuff in the horror genre. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this video today. I'm hoping that some people that don't really watch horror movies are able to listen to this stitch with me and kind of see like why people are so into horror in the first place. I'm sure like a lot of people who watch my channel aren't really horror movie people. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm stitching one-handed right now, I have like a thread end from my last strand that I'll need to tuck in after this video because I finished my threads on the back of my pieces, and I'm just kind of holding it out of the way because it kept getting knotted up. But anyway, that's kind of my personal history. Like I said, Lex and I, my best friend, we've been watching horror together for a long time. When I was in college, like just starting out in college, I was feeling really alone. I was just having a bad time in general, and Lex had their own apartment. Lex is like 6 years older than me, so they were like long out of college, and they lived like half an hour away from my university. So every single weekend I got the chance, I would be driving out to that town to visit Lex, and we would watch like 3 or 4 horror movies a night. And I would be there from like Friday until Sunday. So with that, and then like I used to live with Lex, so we would watch stuff together. I have seen a lot of horror movies in my day. So I hope to share with you guys maybe some stuff that you haven't heard of before, or some stuff that you just like maybe skipped over on Netflix or whatever. I have seen like every single movie that's available on Netflix right now. So that kind of gives you an idea of where I'm at. But anyway, yes. The other honorable mention I wanted to talk about before we get into my top 10 best is a little old movie called Ichi the Killer. If you are aware of this movie, you're probably very excited that I'm mentioning it. Ichi the Killer is a Japanese horror movie. It was, I'm pretty sure, I'll correct myself on screen if this is wrong, but I believe it was directed by Takashi Miike, and he is a very, very prolific and important horror director in Japan. He's made some really influential films. I would say that his movies are not for everyone. That's kind of putting it lightly. Yeah. So that's why this movie is on my honorable mentions. I just think that even for some horror fans, this movie might be a little bit too far out there. It's kind of towing the line of like being borderline inappropriate. And that's like, I'm going to be talking about later on videos that have like sexual videos, movies that talk about like sexual assault or other like very serious themes. But Ichi the Killer is just like wild, and I think it's really difficult to understand. And I think it kind of goes outside the realm of like traditional storytelling to the point where like people who enjoy like normal movies might struggle to keep up with this one. And that's fine. So, what is this movie about? Ichi the Killer is about a Yakuza member. Yakuza is the Japanese mafia, pretty much. Basically, a Yakuza boss has been murdered, and he is trying to... Why can I not get my needle in this hole? He's trying to figure out who murdered the boss, basically. That's pretty much the plot. This movie has some very over-the-top gore. I wouldn't say all of it is super realistic, but it is very over the top. It's really difficult to follow. The plot is ridiculous. Ruben and I watched it while we were drinking one night, and that made it even worse to try to follow the plot. I had to like look it up after to figure out what had actually happened. I had no idea what was going on. So, trigger warnings for this movie. It does contain a lot of gore, like I said. It contains also non-consensual sexual acts. It also contains physical violence against women. So if that's something that's sensitive to you, maybe skip this one. I think most people watching this video maybe skip this one. But if you are really interested in watching a movie that leaves you feeling weird after for like 3 days, you should watch it. I think it's great. It's available to stream on Shudder, I believe, which is a horror movie streaming service. That's where I watched it anyway, like a few months ago. I'm not sure if it's still up there. I think it is, but it's just an amazing movie. I love it. Yeah, I think the people that are really into this movie are like super passionate about it. So, yes. That is my 2 honorable mentions. Let's get into my actual list. I'm just gonna grab it on my phone here because I need to view it or else I'll die. Okay, so the first movie I want to talk about, oh my god, can my phone stop? Okay, I don't know if this is gonna stay, but we're gonna try. So the first movie I want to talk about is actually a very popular horror movie, so you guys might have heard of this one. It's called Midsommar. It came out, oh, I don't know, like 2018 maybe? I don't know, I'm sorry if that's wrong. Midsommar is, again, it's kind of, I wouldn't really compare it to Ichi the Killer in like weirdness or hardness to understand area, I guess, but it's kind of on that line between like normal consumer movies that folks like, that the general public would watch, versus like really weird art house movies that I like to watch. So I think some of the general population struggled with this movie when it came out, but I really love it. It's Ruben's favorite movie. I showed it to him and he loved it. So he keeps asking if we can watch it again. So I guess we're gonna have to do that soon. If you are not aware, Midsommar is a movie about a girl who travels to Europe with her boyfriend and some of his friends. I can't remember what country they go to. It's somewhere like Sweden or something like that. And they go to a extremely small town village to partake in their Midsummer Festival. I believe one of the guys in their little group is trying to do like his college thesis paper on it or something. So that's like the reason that they're going. And the movie documents their experiences there. It sounds very simple. I believe the movie is like 2.5 hours, so it is definitely not simple. It is a little bit slow paced, I will say. I think, again, that's why some people in the mainstream audiences kind of struggled with it, because it was a little bit slower than most. But it is so good. First of all, I'm going to be going through these movies with no spoilers if possible, just because I really want you guys to go watch these movies for real. So I'm going to be trying to avoid spoilers as much as I can. So I apologize if I'm talking in like kind of non-specific terms, but yeah. Anyway, I think that this movie is presented in a really interesting way. When I say that, I mean like the actual visual style of it. Midsommar is a very like bright and colorful and vibrant looking movie, when the themes that it's talking about are like really, really dark. And I think it's really interesting that they went for that angle with a horror movie. I think that it really worked out in their favor, because it makes some of the unsettling scenes seem a little bit more out of place and unexpected, which really works in their favor. Okay, hello, my camera died. So we are back. Let me just get my pattern keeper pulled back up here. I really apologize. I don't know exactly what I was saying. But basically, if you haven't seen Midsommar yet, you should go see it. It is truly a horror masterpiece. I think that it is incredible. It's definitely very well known though, so you've probably seen it at this point if you like horror movies. Yes, let's continue. Also, I did tuck that thread in that I had hanging out in the back, so we're all good on that front. The next movie I have on here, this one's also pretty well known. This is It Chapter 1, the 2017 version, not the original Stephen King It from like the 80s or whatever, that has Tim Curry. I like the original It. If you guys are not aware, the original It is actually a TV miniseries and not a movie. I do actually own it on DVD. I think it is okay. That's like about the extent of my opinion on it. I think it's okay. If it's your favorite thing in the world, I respect that. I have no major issues with it. It's just not like amazing, groundbreaking, show-stopping, whatever. So, but It Chapter 2 from 2017, I think is incredible. Again, this one is pretty well known, so I'm sure most of you guys, if you're into horror, have seen this by now. And also I'm pretty sure most of you guys are probably aware of like the story of Stephen King's It. If you are not, just kind of a quick synopsis-ish of like the surface level story. The story follows a group of kids who live in the small town of Derry in Maine. And pretty much once a generation, there is a string of disappearances of children. And it is actually related to Pennywise the Clown, who is the main antagonist. Yeah, that's pretty much the basic plot. It follows this group of kids, and then there is a second part where they come back as adults. I'm not really a big fan of It Chapter 2. I don't know. I don't know. But It Chapter 1 I think is amazing. I've seen it a lot of times, and I don't usually rewatch movies, so that says something, I guess. I think that It Chapter 1 is done in such a way that it tackles the themes that it's trying to talk about in a really good way. A lot of folks online have really like dove into the story of it and just about like, hey, what is this story actually about, beyond the surface level meaning. And a lot of people have agreed that it's kind of representative of childhood trauma and abuse cycles, and how once we're separated from a situation and it's no longer our problem, we stop talking about it, we stop caring about it, and that's what allows these abusive cycles to continue. One of the other like examples of that is there is a female character who has an abusive father, and when she grows up, she marries a man who is abusive as well. So that's kind of like another way that they talk about that. You can really see this kind of stuff with all of the main characters. But yeah, so that's kind of what it's about. I love this movie so much because I think it handles that subject matter really well. And aside from that, I think that the actual cast of this movie is just great. I think all of them give really incredible performances. I think that they have a lot of chemistry together, which is something that I feel like the cast of It Chapter 2 was lacking a little bit. Not that they didn't have great actors, it just didn't feel as natural, I guess, as the kids who played the characters in Chapter 1. That might just be a personal opinion, but yeah. It Chapter 1, if you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what you're doing. You gotta go do it. Personally, I don't really find it that scary. I just find it interesting and just a genuinely good story. But I'm also not really I'm not really a good metric to judge whether or not something is scary. I've been so desensitized to horror at this point that it's like almost nothing is scary to me. So yeah, I'm not going to be very helpful in that department. The next movie number 3, is a little film called It Follows. So this movie, back in my day, back when I first discovered this movie, I was dating that guy that I mentioned earlier who I was long distance with. I'm just gonna have a sip. I am having a Mike's Harder black cherry flavor. The guy who I was oh my god, the guy who I was dating at the time, who had gotten me really into horror, this movie came out like right when we were starting to watch a lot of movies together. And there was a film reviewer that I really liked watching, and he had put out a little mini review of it in, I think it was like an underrated horror movies kind of video type deal. And I was like, oh, Dalton, I really want to watch. Dalton is my ex-boyfriend's name. I was like, I really want to watch this. It sounds really good. And we ended up not being able to watch it together. I can't remember why, but I did watch it on my own later, and I fell in love with it. And I think in recent years, it's gotten a little bit more popular, which I love. I think it's kind of like Midsommar in the sense that it has a female lead, but it also is really slow paced. I think It Follows is like way slower paced than Midsommar even. So if you thought Midsommar was too slow, maybe don't watch this one. So the plot of it. Let's talk about that before I start sharing opinions. It Follows is, I guess I would technically classify it as a monster movie, or like a demon or ghost kind of movie. It kind of depends on how you interpret the main villain to be. And it follows a girl and a couple of her friends over the course of a couple days, weeks, whatever. They are dealing with a thing that gets attached to you. It can be transmitted from person to person. And once you have it, it pretty much is there forever and you can't get rid of it. The only thing you can do is keep running away or die. Basically, those are your choices. Even if you pass it on to somebody else, there's a fairly high chance to you that it will come back to you eventually. And yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. I think that if you don't know the plot of this movie, I think it makes the experience a little bit better, because you're kind of discovering things along with the characters, and it makes it a little bit more interesting and scarier. I just think it's a better experience if you don't know as much going in. But yeah, so that's kind of the basic idea of it. Big trigger warning for this movie. It has a lot to do with sex. There is no... All of the sexual encounters in this movie are consensual, so you don't need to worry about anything like that. But it is a main plot point. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, maybe steer clear of this one, just because it's not really something that you can skip over or ignore in the plot. Like, it's kind of just there. Like, it's very important, actually. Yes. I think this movie is really great. The soundtrack is incredible, first of all. It is inspired by like 80s synth music, so in general it's kind of an homage to 80s type vibe stuff. It's not really explicitly set in the 80s, but yeah, it kind of has that vibe with the sound and lighting design, and the general feel of it. In terms of the plot, I think it could have been a little bit more fleshed out. There's a lot of aspects of this creature that we don't know anything about. And I don't really know how they could have gone about remedying this, because like it's the movie takes place from the perspective of these kids, and they don't know anything about this creature, and there's really no way for them to find out anything about it. But I wish we could have seen a little bit more about what it's capable of, and just kind of seeing it in some different situations. There's a lot of different plot holes that people have pointed out that I think could have been fairly easily brushed on in the movie, but then there's also some other stuff where it's like, yeah, there's no way that they could have covered that in a way that feels natural. So if you've seen this movie, you probably know what I mean by that. I'm sorry to be so cryptic about it, but all in all, I think this movie is amazing. It's not really like gory. There is some death in it, but it's not like, yeah, it's not too bad. It's more creepy than anything else, and I just think that it's just really good. I want more people to watch it. I believe it was available to stream on Netflix pretty recently. I'm not sure if it still is, but check it out. Yeah, I am kind of figuring out where I am in this pattern right now. Let's grab the next movie off my list also, if I can get to my list. Okay. The next movie on my list that I wanted to talk about is Cabin in the Woods. I had one person in my comments back whatever floss tube it was that I mentioned that I wanted to talk about horror movies. I had somebody in my comments who asked if I liked this movie, and we had a really great conversation about it. I apologize, I can't remember your username, but if you're watching this video, hello. Thank you for talking to me about Cabin in the Woods. Here's some more of my thoughts. So, Cabin in the Woods. It is interesting. Cabin in the Woods is kind of, it is a, I was gonna say it's like a slasher movie or like a monster movie. It's kind of both. But what it really is it is a horror satire piece. I think that was a little bit lost on some people when the movie first came out. Those of us who watch a lot of horror movies, I think, picked up on it right away. But to some general audiences, I think they kind of missed that piece. And there's some people out there who really don't like this movie because they think it's like really cliche and basic, but like that's the point. It's supposed to be making fun of these tropes. So Cabin in the Woods follows a group of 5 people who are taking a little like weekend away at a cabin in the woods. And we get to see what happens with that. I don't really want to spoil anything else. I think like when you first watch the movie for the first time and you figure out what's really going on, it is such a good reveal. But yeah, it really does follow a lot of horror movie tropes from like old slasher movies where, they're separating when they shouldn't be separating, they're having sex when they shouldn't be having sex, and like there's a hot blonde and like a stoner friend and a smart friend, and but again, that's kind of the point of the movie. Yeah, I think that if you are into horror movies, you will really appreciate this one. It's it's really funny in my opinion. I could watch like a million prequels of this universe. Because of the way the movie ends, there's not really it doesn't leave it open for sequels at all. But there could be so many prequels to it, and I would watch every single one. There's just so many different scenarios that could happen. Again, if you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's just so many different scenarios that I would love to see, and different creatures that I would love to know more about that we only get a glimpse of in this movie. But yeah, I think it's really great. It's really entertaining. It's a fun one to watch with friends. It's not like super scary. I wouldn't quite group it into the horror comedy genre, like I would with movies like Scream or The Babysitter. But it is very funny and it's not serious. And it's just a really good time for people who like horror movies. And again, if you've seen a lot of horror movies, I think you'll really get a kick out of this one. So give it a watch, don't take it too seriously, and just have a good time with it. Okay, the next movie is called As Above, So Below. I don't think I've ever met anybody else in person, aside from my best friend Lex and my fiance, who have seen this movie. I don't know why. I think it's a masterpiece. Well, maybe not a masterpiece, but it's amazing. As Above, So Below follows a woman who is, I guess, like an archaeologist slash scholar. And she is on a quest to find the Sorcerer's Stone, which she believes to be real. Her father died while he was on this quest. And yeah, it's got a lot to do with like old alchemy kind of stuff, and it takes place actually in the catacombs underneath Paris, which is very interesting. I'm super claustrophobic, so you would never catch me down there. But it's a really great setting for a horror movie. I find it very scary, like the first couple times. I've seen this one a lot of times too, so it doesn't really scare me anymore. But the first few times I watched it, it genuinely did freak me out. Yeah, there's a lot going for it. I think that it tackles some big themes as well, like some of the other movies I've mentioned to do. I'm just gonna bring this end up over here to take care of later. And I think it does a really good job with its subject matter. It talks about a lot of different things, including self-inflicted death. I'm kind of skirting around some of these words here because I know YouTube is not a fan of many of them. It talks about that, and it talks about like personal passions and grief and guilt and like all this different stuff. All of the characters end up having backstories and just all this crazy stuff. I will not ever stop being mad that they killed my favorite character. Yeah, if you've seen this movie and you want to know who I'm mad about, please let me know down below and I'll tell you in a comment. They killed my favorite character. He didn't deserve it, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not over it, but yeah. Anyway, As Above, So Below, it's just great. Please give it a watch if you haven't. My camera is starting to overheat, so I'm going to take a quick break here and then I'll come back in a little bit with the second half of my list. Okay, I am back. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster with these last 5 movies, just because my camera does tend to overheat pretty quickly and I don't know how much time I have, so yeah. So, the next movie I am going to talk about is a little old movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is definitely a classic horror movie that I actually found a lot of people my age, I'm 24, have not seen, weirdly enough. Texas Chainsaw came out in the 70s, so it is definitely a little bit older, and it can be kind of hard to find on streaming services these days. That's actually why I hadn't seen it up until like 2 years ago. It just wasn't available anywhere, and I didn't really. I so I'm not really a big fan of most of the original like 80s iconic slasher movies, and so I didn't really go out of my way to watch Texas Chainsaw just because I don't know, I just didn't think I was gonna really enjoy it that much. I thought it was gonna be dumb and like cheesy, especially because I knew that it was older than like, I don't know, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. So I figured that it would just be like worse, but I actually think that it is a really incredible movie. The movie is just about, a bunch of idiots going out to this guy's like uncle's cabin or something in Texas, and they get murdered. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that this movie does a really good job with like setting the scene and really doing a good job at building tension. There's some good plot twists that you don't really see coming. That definitely caught me off guard the first time that I watched it. I went in knowing pretty much nothing about the movie, so it was really great. The movie is old enough that there's really not any gore shown. It's all implied. And yeah, I just think it's really awesome. Of course, like one of the best scenes is the dinner scene. Like it's such an iconic horror movie moment. And I know that like this movie is kind of basic. Like everybody knows about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's just I need to emphasize like how genuinely good this movie is because again, like I thought that it was going to be the same as some of the other slashers that I had seen and not enjoyed all that much, but I just think it's so good. Ruben also really liked it. He is a little bit more picky about his horror movies than I am, and he said that it was really good too. So, yeah, if you somehow have not seen this movie, please go watch it. It's just a good time, honestly. It is such a good time. It's not very serious. It's not like super high concept or anything like that, like some of the other movies I've talked about today, like Midsommar or As Above, So Below are. But it's just great. So please give it a watch. I also think that it's a really good basis for like other horror movies. Like it's kind of like one of the original like Godfather horror movies where it sets up a lot of the tropes that other movies are copying later on. So if you remember when I was talking about Cabin in the Woods just now, I was saying it's pretty much the same setup of like some people go to like a place that they haven't really been before and then they get murdered. And that's kind of where some of these tropes come from. Like a lot of the tropes from Cabin in the Woods are originally from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's just really cool. I just really like it. So, yes. The next film is a movie called Creep. Again, I don't really know anybody who has seen this movie, I don't think. This, I think, is a little bit more obscure even than like As Above, So Below. Creep is, it's kind of like a character study. I guess like if I had to group it into a horror genre, I would classify it as like a stalker movie. or like a suspense movie. I I love this movie. Creep might be in like the top three. There are two Creep movies. I think that they're both really incredible. I have a little bit more strong feelings towards the first one. The second one is also really amazing, and I don't want to downplay how good it is, but I'm really just going to be talking about the first one, just for time's sake, and also I just like it so much. So the plot of Creep is about it's about a guy named Aaron. He takes an ad from basically Craigslist, and it's supposed to be a videographer gig. He's supposed to be meeting up with this guy and helping him film a video for his child, his unborn child, because the guy has cancer, and he knows he's going to be dying before his son is able to really meet him. So he hires this videographer to document different things for him. He's pretty much supposed to be there for a full day. And he just is supposed to film everything. This is a found footage movie, but I think it's done in a way that makes sense. You get more from this movie because it's a found footage movie. Unlike some modern, well, this movie is pretty recent, but there's a lot of found footage horror movies that just don't use the medium very well. Like they may as well just be normal movies. I'm particularly thinking of The Visit by M. Night Shyamalan. That movie is found footage, but it may as well have just been filmed normally. You don't gain anything from it being a found footage movie. But Creep it's honestly really important that it's a found footage movie. Both like plot relevance wise and also like immersion wise. The kind of the point of the movie is you're supposed to feel uncomfortable from like the guy who is hiring Aaron. I'm not really going to go too much into it because I think that this movie has so many twists and turns that are just they're really great to experience by yourself. They make you truly uncomfortable. Like genuinely uncomfortable, and I don't get like creeped out easily. It's called Creep for a reason, and it's interesting because he doesn't really do anything in the movie that's like necessarily an automatic red flag, you know? Like he's not like explicitly trying to come off as like a murderer or whatever. He's just like uncomfortable. He is creepy. And it's interesting because like it just spends so much time focusing on this guy as a person and like what he's like, and you kind of get a sense of the relationship that he's building with Aaron and the sense of trust that he's trying to build despite how creepy he is. It feels very realistic, where like it's really easy when you're watching a horror movie to be like, oh, I would never do that. I would simply walk away, or, you know, whatever it is. But I think that this movie does a really good job of displaying these warning signs and then having realistic reactions to them, and also having the creepy guy explain them away in a way that also feels realistic. If somebody says something slightly ominous to you in real life, you're probably not going to run away and call the police immediately. So I just think it does a really great job. The writing is amazing. The acting is amazing. Please watch this movie. Touching on the second one just really quickly. The second one is... Sorry, I'm just over here messing with my camera. The second movie is a more focused character study on the creepy guy from the first movie, and it also deals with themes about like journalistic reporting. and the ways in which journalists can kind of have like they can kind of become the people that they're reporting on because they're trying to get more information out of that person, if that makes any sense. And they can kind of get lost in the sauce, you know, with just like trying to blend in to the point where it's like, are you still pretending? Is this real at this point? Like, yeah, it's really interesting. Also, I think the girl in that movie is really attractive. Yeah, I just really love it. Creep is like one of my favorite movies ever of all time, so if you haven't seen it, you should give it a watch. I'm going back to my list here. Okay. Next up we have The Ritual. So this is a monster movie. This is a movie about a few friends who go hiking. They recently had a friend who passed away, and the friend group has kind of been having some issues since then regarding like the guy's death and blame and stuff like that. So they kind of take this hiking trip as like an honor to their friend and also as a way to reconnect with one another. And lo and behold, they get lost, of course, and they end up finding some people in the woods, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with the plot. Yeah, I think that this movie, I don't have as much to say about this one as I did with like Creep. The Ritual is engaging, interesting, well written, amazing monster design. I love, 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 love the monster design in this movie. I think that it is amazing. I think the monster is super creepy, but in like the best way. I love the monster. I want to be friends with it, and that's that. So, pretty like low mental effort movie, but really interesting and really fun to watch. I have two movies left. The next one is going to be The Babadook. This one, again, is a little bit more well-known. And this is kind of like Midsommar, where I'm not really sure why it started being a more popular movie, because it seems like it's a little bit too close to being an artsy, fartsy art house movie, where like the general public probably wouldn't enjoy it, but for some reason it really got really popular. The Babadook is about a single mother and her son. It's revealed very, very early in the movie that her husband actually died in a car accident on their way to the hospital for her to have their son. And like I said, that's introduced very early, like within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, so I don't feel weird about saying that because it's such an early plot point. But yeah, it's kind of about her life dealing with this son and dealing with the grief of losing her husband. It's been several years since he passed away, but grief is really difficult to deal with, and depression and mental illnesses are difficult to live with. So it explores that. The actual like topical horror in the plot is she's reading bedtime stories to her son one night, and they end up finding a book that she doesn't recognize called Mr. Babadook. And I love the pop-up book scenes. I think they're amazing. The art design in them is incredible. But she reads this book to her son. It ends up being really, really creepy. She tries getting rid of it. Of course, like the book comes back and all this other creepy stuff starts happening. And yeah, I think that's as far as I'll go with the plot for that. If you have depression or if you struggle with grief, this movie may be very triggering for you. I've only seen it 2 or 3 times because I find it so difficult to watch. I actually just rewatched it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had to watch like some really dumb movie afterwards to cheer ourselves up because it was just like, it's really difficult to watch as somebody who struggles with depression a lot. So it does a really, really good job of displaying what it's like to be a person with depression, and the way that you're treated by other people in your life and by society in general. And I think it does a really good job representing grief as a monster that you need to learn how to deal with. I think that's all I can say on that without getting too specific. What is going on here? Too specific with like the plot. Because again, I really would like you guys to watch these movies and enjoy them, so I don't want to go too deep into it. Yeah. The last movie I want to talk about is one of the first horror movies that I watched that I was like, holy shit, that was a really good movie. This movie is called The Descent. I think it was really popular a while ago, like over 10 years ago. But I don't really see people talking about it as much these days. There's technically a sequel. As a fan base, we don't talk about the sequel. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. I have never seen it, and I never will. It's just very bad. Yeah. It contradicts some of the plot from the first movie, and it was directed and written by different people, and it's just not good. So I just pretend it doesn't exist. But what is this movie about? This movie is about a group of friends, and they like to do very adventurous things like white water rafting and spelunking and caving and crap. So, yes. Basically, this movie is a cave movie. It is a monster movie. It's, I guess, more of a creature movie. But basically what happens is this group of friends goes exploring into a cave and shit happens. I don't want to give away any of the plot twists, even like the early ones. I think it's better if you go in not knowing any of them. So, this movie, first of all, something you might not know, this movie was actually filmed on a set, which is really impressive. The design of the set is just amazing. It's so immersive. When I had no idea it was filmed on a set, it looks like a cave. It's just so good. The lighting is done expertly. It is so creepy, and it really makes you feel like you're there with them. One of the issues with the sequel was that it was just way too brightly lit, and it took away a lot of the atmosphere from the first one. There's a part at the end of the movie where there is a shot of outside the cave, and because you've been in the cave with the girls for like the past hour or more, the outside of the cave physically like hurts your eyes because it's so bright. It seems like it's too bright to be real, because you've just been enveloped in this darkness for so long. And it's just so immersive. Like I said, I just really love it. I think that the actual plot is interesting too. There's some relationship dynamic stuff between some of the girls. That is, it's not like a main, I guess it's technically a main plot point, but it's not like the point of the movie, but it still is very well done. I have strong opinions on like the main girls in the movie. One of them I think is awful and I hate her. So, but yeah, they do a really good job of making me feel some type of way about these characters when, a lot of times in horror movies, the characters are just there to be killed off later and they don't really have any agency or anything. So, I'm specifically talking about Juno. If you have seen this movie, I really don't like her. I think she's awful. So, but yeah, And also the cast just feels very natural together. I really love that about it. So yes. This one's another one that genuinely makes me uncomfortable. So if you are claustrophobic and like watching people climb around in a cave and get eaten, you should watch this movie. Okie dokie. That is all I have to talk about today. This was a super long video, so I'm hoping you guys got some good work done. I'm just gonna finish this column really quick since I only have a couple of stitches left, and then I'll let you guys know what percentage I'm at with this piece. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm thinking about doing another movie later on about like some of my favorite bad horror movies. I definitely have a lot of like guilty pleasures and a lot of so bad they're good kind of movies. I've seen a lot of genuinely bad movies that I didn't enjoy, but I've also seen a lot of bad movies that I did enjoy because I thought they were entertaining and just great. So I'd like to cover those at some point too, because I think that they're underrated. And no, I will not be talking about Sharknado. I think Sharknado is good, but like at this point, everybody knows that it exists. And I'd rather give the spotlight to something else, like, yeah, anyway. So I am now at 68.21%. I think I've upped it by a little bit since I started. I can't remember where I was at, but anyway. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you got some good progress done on your cross-stitch pieces. And yeah, I'll see you next week for a regular floss tube. Bye!